What a nice vacation from D&D. I finally get to travel to see the stars. I get to see the sights across the galaxy and...
Incoming transmission.
Oh? On screen.
So promise you won't be mad.
God damn it. Guess we're doing this again.
My third level ability is something called Performance of Creation, which allows me to create a non-magical object in an unoccupied space within 10 feet of me. So with that in mind, I think I've discovered a way to use that ability to create a black hole and turbo suck any enemy I come across for the foreseeable future. How?
Exactly. How?
Well, it says here that the item has to be medium-sized or smaller. However, it doesn't specify weight requirements. Well, that means I could theoretically create an infinitely dense 5-foot diameter tear in space-time, which lasts a number of hours equal to my proficiency bonus. Hold it!
Did you even read the ability? First of all, there isn't a written gold value on a black hole, but I'm sure that it would be a hell of a lot more expensive than that. Even with that, it needs a surface that can support it. And to quote a friend who I shared this with, there's not a surface or fluid in existence that could support a black hole. And that's enough of this. Get out of here with this making a black hole nonsense. What the hell? It's still there?
Did you know you could create a black hole in D&D with just the 5th level spell?
Oh god, another black hole thing.
So according to the description of the spell creation, it allows you to create an object out of different materials. The thing is, there's no mass or density limit for the object you create.
No, I suppose it doesn't specify that. It also doesn't specify that you can.
Only a size limit. So theoretically, you could create a sphere of plant matter with a radius of 2.5 feet that has a ridiculously high density, which would then cause it to collapse in on itself and create a black hole. Hold it!
My dude, what? If you've condensed it so dense that it would collapse in on itself, it's probably no longer plant or mineral matter. You also need to have seen something like it before, and there's no chance in hell you've seen an object of a material so dense it would collapse into a black hole. It would just be a black hole. And to also quote that same good friend of mine, black holes are literally, factually, unseeable. They absorb light. Also, matter packed densely enough to collapse into a black hole would neither qualify as vegetable nor mineral matter, but would be a wholly distinct classification. Get out of my sight with this. Alright, now it's time to get on with...
Tactical alert. Vessel approaching. Bearing 184, Mark 7.
It's not technically illegal. It absolutely is. Only if you're a buzzkill who doesn't like fun.
Yep, that's me.
Well, according to the description, it starts as a 1-inch tall cube that rapidly transforms into a 30-foot tall, 20-foot wide fortress the second you speak its command phrase. And it's important to make note of the words rapidly transforms because that implies that it doesn't get replaced by a fortress, it grows to the size of a fortress. Just hear me out, there's a few ways this could go, like for instance, placing the item inside of my enemy's mouth and then speaking its command phrase, which would essentially rip them in half. What? Hold it!
No, it wouldn't. The item actually explicitly says what would happen if there's a creature in the same area as when it grows. To quote it, each creature in the area where the tower appears is pushed to an unoccupied space outside but next to the tower. And depending on what version you're using, this is either harmless as per the 2024 rules, or deals 1d10 damage per the 2014 rules. It won't rip you in half, you'll be pushed to the side. You may be thinking, that doesn't make sense, but that's on you for trying to bring real-world physics and stuff into D&D 5e. This isn't GURPS. What will be ripped in half is your ship for interrupting my nice vacation.
Tactical alert. Vessel approaching.
Another ship is approaching at high warp, and it seems to belong to D&D shorts. On screen.
No, I'm a Tempest Cleric, so whenever I deal lightning damage to a creature, I can push them 10 feet away from me. And up is 10 feet away from me.
Hold it!
I know that I'm the rules as written guy, but I'm just like 90% sure that when it says away, it means like away in the direction opposite of you. As in they move in the same direction as a straight line drawn from you to them.
Right? Yeah, that's right. But I also have the gift of the chromatic dragon feat, so whenever I hit someone with a weapon, it deals an extra 1d4 lightning damage. So you've built a taser that deals extra damage and launches enemies 10 feet in the air. And then they fall back down, taking another 1d6 bludgeoning and landing prone. So everyone else can attack at advantage too. What's the range on this? 600 feet with a longbow.
Hold it!
And this may be venturing a little too close to rules as intended, but what sane person is gonna rule that you can use Repelling Blast to push someone up? You aren't launching someone, you're pushing them. Thunderwave has the exact same description, by the way, pushing away from you. Same as, like I said earlier, Repelling Blast on an Eldritch Blast. Those things push things directly away from you, not directly up. And, the vessel is uncloaking. It belongs to Monkey DM. Hey, maybe it'll be good. Most of his content is well researched. Okay.
I cast create water in the Minotaur's lungs so he chokes and dies. Alright? The Goblin Wizard next to the Minotaur casts create water inside of your lungs as you choke and die and roll for your new character. And while you do that, let's agree not to do that ever again.
I mean, okay, later in the same video, he says using things in stupid ways that aren't clearly intended is a bad idea.
If you want to use the spell in game-breaking ways, just think that the GM can then do the same, which is why the GM should always have the final say in the creative use of those spells.
Hold it!
But you could have chosen a slightly better example, because mechanically this would never work at all. Specifically, you can't cast a spell to target something that's behind total cover. Though, anywho, I like this video, so I'm just gonna disable the ship instead of destroy it. And, uh-oh. It seems someone didn't like me blowing up all his ships. I should take care of those one at a time.
Hey DM, I have a question about the spell Catapult.
Are you kidding me? Catapult? Again?
Well, is it possible to use the spell Catapult on non-solid objects? What do you mean? Well, the spell stipulates that you choose an object weighing 1 to 5 pounds that isn't being worn or carried, but says nothing of how much space that object is allowed to take up. For instance, if you happen to hold an action and the opposing wizard casted Fireball, could you then burn a reaction to cast Catapult on it? Hold it!
First of all, no, let's stop this. First of all, you need to know that's gonna happen on your turn. Holding a spell uses the spell slot, which gets lost if your concentration on it gets broken before your next turn. So if anyone attacks you, there's a chance that spell slot's just gone. It's only like a low-level slot, but it's still a spell slot. Also, a fireball isn't an object. When someone casts fireball, they send out a flash of light that creates an explosion at a point.
Wait, hold on, what? Cause fire weighs next to nothing, and if there aren't any size limits, you could theoretically launch the entirety of their spell back at them. Objection!
My god, this isn't the first time this has been said here on this series. Why doesn't anyone understand that an object that weighs between 1 to 5 pounds means an object that only weighs between 1 to 5 pounds? If it's lighter than that, or it's heavier than that, then it's not a valid target for the spell.
I mean, technically that would be targeting a spell, not an object. Well, at what point does a spell's effect no longer count as the spell? Like, if the spell set a roof on fire, does the resulting blaze also count as part of the spell, or is it just fire? God, this is the ship of Theseus of magical war crimes. Oh, what about the wind? Say an opposing army launches a barrage of arrows at you, and you use your action to propel the wind forward and throw all of their arrows off. Objection!
No, you couldn't. The definition of an object is a non-living, distinct thing. Enough air to weigh 1 to 5 pounds isn't really a distinct thing. If we are going off definitions for distinct, it would be a recognizably different in nature from something else of a similar type, physically separate, or readily distinguishable by the senses. That doesn't really describe a bunch of air.
Well, considering it's not really part of any spell or anything, you probably could. Why stop there, though? In single-use cases, you could probably use Catapult on the arrow itself, because mind you, it isn't being worn or carried. The second they shoot it, it becomes fair game. Objection!
My guy, you literally read the spell out loud in the beginning of this video.
Choose an object weighing 1 to 5 pounds.
You should know this. 1 to 5 pounds. Arrows are 0.8 ounces in 5e, which, if you didn't know, is less than 1 pound. So it's not a valid target for catapults.
D&D question. When it comes to a druid's wild shape, is there anything stated in the rules that says that you can't turn into a deadly disease?
Huh?
Like, obviously you're limited by challenge rating, but I don't know what the challenge rating of COVID is.
Dude, that's not a beast. Wildshape explicitly states a beast. COVID is a virus. It isn't even alive. Bacteria probably is not a beast either.
Like, how would the main villain react coming face to face with a druid whose main method of attack is to give people AIDS?
Hey, dude, AIDS is caused by HIV. Would you care to take a guess as to what the V stands for? Also, in what world are you able to see viruses and bacteria with your bare eyes? This isn't Voyager, we don't have macro viruses. Oh, scanners are indicating this one had some viruses on board. Probably so a druid could do it through a microscope and, yeah, one good hit to their science station should do it. Okay, and, another ship's coming in. Oh, D&D shorts.
Vial of werebear lycanthrope blood. Before you get into a fight, drink it and use your portent ability to make sure you fail the DC 12 con save to resist the effects. You now have werebear lycanthropy.
Objection!
Ooh, fun fact. This one's only technically wrong, and that's the best kind of wrong is technically wrong. Werebear isn't an option for the blood on the lycanthrope poison. The only options for that are were-rat, werewolf, and were-boar. Okay, let's actually skip on this, because it's not actually that big of a deal.
Hey DM, what's the most powerful spell in all of D&D? Wish? Incorrect. What do you mean? It's Mage Hand.
Wait a second.
How? Because believe it or not, you can insta-kill any enemy with it so long as they're within range. But it doesn't deal any damage, and even if it could, it states you can't make attacks with it. It also states that a spectral hand appears at a point I choose within range, rather than a point I can see, which means it doesn't require a line of sight and doesn't state how big the hand has to be. People just assume it's the size of a regular hand.
Hold it! Oh, I know this. I've heard this before. Computer, put my first ever debunking video on screen.
Why did nobody tell me that the spell Mage Hand is the most powerful spell in all of D&D?
Oh, no, I see where this is going.
First of all, it's barely a spell, and an inoffensive one at that. It doesn't deal any damage, and even if it could, it states you can't make attacks with it. Yeah, but it also states that a spectral hand appears at a point I choose within range rather than a point I can see, which means that it doesn't require a line of sight. It doesn't state how big the hand has to be. People just assume it's the size of a regular hand. What's your point? I fail to see your point. Well, theoretically, I could summon a Mage Hand inside of them. Well, with all that in mind, I'm going to summon the Mage Hand inside of someone. You still can't attack with it, and according to rules as written, shoving and grappling does in fact count as an attack, so no inducing heart attacks. And do what exactly? You can't attack with it, and according to rules as written, shoving and grappling does in fact count as an attack. Well, say that when I cast Mage Hand, I decide to make it roughly the size of a quarter. Well, say that when I cast Mage Hand, I decide to make it roughly the size of a quarter. Rather than attempting to play patty cake with their internal organs, I simply summon it inside an artery that pumps oxygenated blood to the brain. And rather than attempting to play patty cake with their internal organs, I simply summon it inside of an artery that pumps oxygenated blood to the brain, which would then in turn create a clot and give your BBG a stroke, which would in turn cause a clot and give the BBG a stroke. Objection!
This is practically word for word. I mean, I know you already re-upload every single video and make thousands of times instead of making more new stuff, but taking an old video and reading it nearly word for word is wild, dude. And, you know, might as well reiterate what I said the first time I did these videos. There is not a direct path between you and the target. It's behind total cover and therefore is not a valid target. You cannot cast spells inside of people. This is basic common sense. Both PHBs cover this. They're both good books. Perhaps you should read them because clearly you haven't.
D&D question. Is there anything stated in the rules that says that I can't use the Arcane Lock spell on a person? Because in the targets, it does state any entryway. So does that mean that I can use it to magically clog someone's arteries? Or cut off the blood flow to somebody's brain? Like, what's to stop me from walking around giving people heart attacks and shit?
You gotta be kidding me. In what world is an artery a fucking entryway? Also, like I said before, you can't cast a spell behind total cover.
Hey DM, I have a question about the spell Banishment. You banish a creature, what's not to get?
Hey, wait a sec. I've seen this premise too. For shame.
Hey DM, I have a question about the spell Banishment. You banish a creature to another plane of existence where they're incapacitated for a minute. It's right there in the name. So, what determines the characteristics of that plane? Cool. What determines the characteristics of that plane? I assume you do, so long as it fulfills the requirements specified by the spell. I assume you do, as long as it fulfills the requirements specified by the spell. Meaning that it has to be harmless. Okay, but what does that mean? Because if I'm a Warforged, then a demiplane where there's no air is completely harmless to me. But if I put an enemy there, then they suffocate. So, am I able to make my demiplane a vacuum and just insta-kill any creature I put in there? Which are? Well, it just states that the demiplane has to be harmless. Okay, but what does that mean? Because if I'm a Warforged, then a demiplane where there's no air is completely harmless to me. But if I put an enemy there, then they suffocate. So am I able to just insta-kill anyone I put in there? Well, I'm assuming it has to be harmless to them while they're there. Well, I'm assuming it has to be harmless to them. Okay, well, say I banish a person to a demiplane of only water, and while they're incapacitated, they start to drown. Technically speaking, water isn't harmful if you can swim. It's not my fault that the spell stipulates they're incapacitated while they're there, thus creating the perfect storm of accidental death. Okay, well, say I banish a person to a demiplane with a beach, and while they're incapacitated, I have them appear face down in the water. Do they just drown while they're there? Because technically speaking, the definition of harmless is not likely to cause harm, not impossible. Objection!
Anyways, I don't think I covered it before, so let's go over it. First of all, it doesn't specify that you can specify what the demiplane is. It's a harmless demiplane. That's it. You don't get to decide what's in it or what it looks like, you just send someone there and they're incapacitated. Unless, you know, they're not on their home plane, in which case you send them there. Also, you don't know what incapacitated means, clearly. If you read the PHB, which I know you haven't, you'd know that incapacitated only prevents actions and reactions in 2014, and was upgraded in 2024 to include you not being able to use bonus action, spell concentration, speaking, and you having disadvantage on initiative. Notice that none of these said that you can't move. In fact, you have your full movement speed. It's just that incapacitated is combined with other things that don't let you move.
You aren't arguing this in Magic Claims Court. I'm fairly certain if they die there, then it isn't harmless. What if they die when they get back? What do you mean? Well, say I send them to a demi-plane of only air, and thus they enter into a free fall for the duration. Once they come back, do they carry that momentum with them? I mean, well, shit. What even happens when you hit the ground instantaneously after achieving terminal velocity? I don't think I want to know. Objection!
No, there's no momentum in 5e. Stop bringing real-world physics into D&D. That's not how this works. It's reading as another D&D shorts vessel, but this one seems different somehow. Uh-oh.
Hey DM, I think I've created the most messed up combo in D&D. Well, I'm sure it's nothing I can't handle. I would like to Wildshape into an aphid. The insect? Aphids are asexual reproducers. I will now impregnate myself. Oh god, is this some weird fetish thing? It gets so much worse. You said conditions carry over across wild shapes, and that includes physical changes like pregnancy.
Hold it!
No, sorry. Conditions are a specific thing. You know, pregnancy isn't a condition in 5e. So, there are things like stunned, paralyzed, frightened, invisible, blinded, unconscious, prone, etc. You get what I mean.
Well, I spend the next 4.6 days in aphid form gestating my eggs.
Hold it!
I mean, there's no reason that you'd be able to do that. Like, who would let you take a long rest? Who would let you take a long rest that long?
And just before giving birth, I wild shape again into a Quetzalcoatlus, the dinosaur. I lay my eggs, and soon the whole party will have giant CR2 flying dinosaur steeds.
Hold it!
Well, you need to have seen one of those first, I guess, and the games won't take you to see one of those unless you're playing like Jurassic Park or Tomb of Annihilation or your DM is a scaly. Also, why would an aphid spawn morph with you? They aren't equipment. They also aren't you. It'd probably be another creature at that point.
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
Who are also my children and technically my genetic clones. Well, I'm scarred for life. Thank you.
Yeah, same here. I could fix my warp core, but at this point, it isn't worth it.